Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our City Council meeting, April 7th, 2025. Councilmember Heredia is excused and Vice Mayor Summers is participated by Zoom, and all our council members are here, so thank you. With that, we're going to begin with an invocation by Reverend Tani Garcia from the First Christian Church. After she's done, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance, so please stand for both of those. Thank you.
Well, let us pray. God of wisdom and grace, we thank you for the gift of this city and for the people who make it the vibrant, diverse, and growing community it is. We lift up Mayor Freeman, our city council members, and all those who strive to make Mesa a great place to live. Give them clear minds and steady hearts as they navigate the important work before them. May they lead with compassion and a deep commitment to what is right and good for all who call this place home. We also give thanks for the citizens gathered tonight and for those whose voices and hopes are represented in this place and beyond. Remind us that building a strong and healthy community takes all of us working together with respect and care. May this meeting be guided by wisdom, shaped by humility, and filled with the kind of listening that leads to understanding. In your holy and precious name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. We're going to begin with, we're proud to recognize April 5th through 11th is CASA Week, C-A-S-A, Volunteer Week. And let me explain that. The health and safety and well-being of Arizona's children are foundational to our community's future, and each year, thousands of children enter into the foster care system in need of stability and support. So court-appointed special advocates, that's what CASA stands for, step into this gap as trusted volunteers who champion the best interests of these youth during tough times. Their compassion, dedication, and advocacy makes a lasting impact. We'd like to thank these amazing volunteers for making a big difference in children's lives and encourage others to get involved. I'd like to introduce Robin Pearson, Executive Director and co-founder of Voices for CASA Children, and Trista Guzman Glover, President of Voices of CASA Children Board of Directors. Why don't you both come up and share a few words? And Tricia, you bring in your baby. Awesome, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Freeman and Council. My name is Trista Guzman Glover, and I'm the Board President for Voices for CASA Children. On behalf of Voices, I want to extend our sincerest appreciation for proclaiming CASA Volunteer Week in Mesa, Arizona. Your recognition of the vital work of court-appointed special advocates highlights the importance of standing up for children in foster care who need a voice and a champion during difficult times. By shining a light on this cause, you are helping to inspire more community members to step forward and make a meaningful difference in the lives of vulnerable children. Your leadership and commitment to fostering a supportive and compassionate community are deeply appreciated. Together, we can ensure that every child feels seen, heard, safe, and valued. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Robin?
Again, I just want to say thank you as the Executive Director. This means so much to our organization and to the volunteers who are here in Maricopa and Mesa, Arizona, looking out after our vulnerable children. So thank you so much.
Great. Well, don't leave. We're going to come down and take a picture with you.
Right.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you. Can I shake your hand?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for coming down. Next, item 2 is the consent agenda. Mr. Christopher, as you come forward, would you please remove 6A from your consent agenda?
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. These are the items on the consent agenda. All items listed with an asterisk will be considered as a group by the City Council and will be enacted with one motion. There will be no separate discussion unless a council member or citizen requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered as a separate item. Item 2, approval of minutes of previous meetings is written. Item 3A, act on liquor license application for Copper State Tap House, 1033 North Dobson Road. Item 3B, act on liquor license for Conociera Marietas, 1911 West Broadway. Item 3C, act on liquor license for Extra Mile, 414 West Guadalupe Road. Item 3D, act on liquor license for French Toast Cafe, that is 7641 East Guadalupe Road. Item 4A, approving additional vendor awards to the 3-year term contract with 2-year renewal options for safety shoes for various departments as requested by the Human Resources Department. Item 4B, approving dollar limit increase to the cooperative term contract for office furniture products and services for the Business Services Department. Item 4C, approving 1-year term contract with 4-year renewal options for nodeless service risers for the Business Services Department for the Energy Resources Department. Item 4D, approving 3-year term contract with 2-year renewal options for automobile dealers eligibility list for the Fleet Services Department. Item 4E, approving 3-year term contract with 2-year renewal options for auction services. Item 4F, approving 3-year term contract with 2-year renewal options for swimming pool cool deck resurfacing for the Parks, Recreation, and Community Facilities Department. Item 4G, approving 16-month use of cooperative term contract with renewal options for security and protection systems and related equipment, technology, parts, support, and services for the Mesa Police Department. Item 5A, approving resolution to enter into a memorandum of understanding between the City of Mesa and Soul Trust Maine for completion of the development project known as The Grid, including city-owned property generally located at the southwest corner of Main Street in Pomeroy. Item 5B, approving a resolution to submit a grant application by Child Crisis Arizona to the Ak-Chin Indian community and authorizing the city manager to accept and administer subsequent awarded funds as a pass-through grant. Item 5C, approving a resolution to submit a grant application by Desert Sounds Performing Arts to the Ak-Chin Indian community and authorizing the city manager to accept and administer subsequent awarded funds as a pass-through grant. Item 5D, approving a resolution to submit a grant application by Desert Sounds Performing Arts to the Pascua Yaqui tribe and authorizing the city manager to accept and administer subsequent awarded funds as a pass-through grant. Item 5E, approving a resolution setting May 19th, 2025 as a public hearing date to review the proposed fiscal year 2025-2026 annual assessments for the Mesa Town Center Improvement District. The proposed final assessments do not include any rate increases. Item 5F, approving a resolution for zoning case 24-876 for property located at the southeast corner of Southern Avenue and Signal Butte. Council use permit for a freeway landmark monument. Item 6A has been removed from the consent agenda. Item 6B, introduction of ordinance for zoning case 24-756 for property south of the southeast corner of McKellips Road and Bell Vista Drive. This is for a rezone of the bonus intensity zone overlay for development of one single residence. Item 6C, introduction of ordinance adding section 1-12-10 to the Mesa City Code, Title I, Chapter 12, authorizing the Mesa Municipal Court to assess certain court monitoring fees in the schedule of fees and charges. Item 6D, introduction of ordinance amending section 1-20-4 to the Mesa City Code, Title I, Chapter 20, to provide the city manager authority to extinguish, abandon, and grant certain easements and to dedicate rights of way and easements to the public from city-owned land, and amending Title IX, Chapter 10 regarding the extinguishment of easements. Item 7A, approving ordinance amending the City Code, Title V, Chapter 7 to exempt those who solely sell secondhand goods. And item 8A, approving subdivision plat for property located east of the southeast corner of McKellips Road and Greenfield Road. Mayor and council members, these are the items on the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Christopher. We have a motion by Ms. Spilsbury, a second by Ms. Duff. Please cast your vote. Vice Mayor, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next, we'll move back over to item 6A on the council agenda. And I know there's a lot of people here to talk about this 6A, the 121 Beverly project. But I want to ask the council if they would consider this. I know as we've met previously, there has been some concerns about the project in itself, but I would like to suggest that staff and the applicant explore ways to reduce its density and we have a continuance of this project. And I want to encourage the neighborhood and the applicant and staff to work together to do this. I want to give staff the flexibility to bring back once the issues have been sufficiently addressed. When a new public hearing is scheduled, it's properly noticed to the neighbors and other interested parties are aware of the due date. So that's something I want you to consider, council, if you're willing to do that, continuance to move forward with that. And I'll entertain maybe a suggestion by our city attorney, Mr. Smith, about this type of process.
Mayor and council, if you want, you can have a conversation about this to see if you're an indication, maybe not do the motion right now. And that way, all the speakers that are here, they might know ahead of time that you're inclined to grant a continuance for this anyways. And so maybe, they won't take their full 3 minutes, recognizing that they're going to be working with the applicant to try to bring a revised project to council in the future.
So council, let's have a discussion on how you want to proceed.
Are you?
Go ahead, Ms.
Okay.
Pillsbury.
Yeah, that was going to be my question, was if we were still going to hear from the neighbors, because I would like to hear from the neighbors. I have been a part of a lot of controversial zoning cases over the last 4.5 years, and I've been very impressed with the neighborhoods who will voice their opinions and work with us in trying to see how we can make this be something that works for the neighborhood and for the developers. And it's really important to have those voices engaged. And one in particular asked for 3 different areas that they had concerns about. And it took a long time. It took several months to get through some of those concerns, but at the end of the day, we were able to come up with a better project for the neighborhood because the neighbors were willing to work on it with us. And I was really grateful for their voices. Instead of just saying, we don't want anything on that lot, so we're gonna fight you all the way, they were willing to sit with staff and with the developers and the architect and work on coming up with I think it ended up being a better project. It's just starting to be built. So, we'll see how it ends up, but I just think that at the end of the day, it's so important for all of the voices to come together. And I don't feel like that has happened completely yet on this project. I think there's a lot of really great things about this project. I also want to make sure the neighborhood's voices are being heard as well, so I would support a continuance.
Ms. Duff?
I think the zoning proposal is adequate. I'm for supporting the project as is. I think the density is appropriate for the neighborhood. We have heard from neighbors who are opposed to it, and we've received some emails for and against, but I don't think we have the breadth of hearing. I would like to hear from some of the neighbors first before we go into removing that option to hear from them. I have a lot of reasons for it as far as keeping the zoning as is, and I can go into that, but I think we owe it to the people that are here to hear from them before we take any action.
Okay.
When you say the zoning as is, you mean as proposed?
As proposed.
Not current zoning, but as proposed, okay.
Any other council want to speak? Mr. Adams?
I would lean towards listening to the folks who have come here tonight to speak to us about it. Always in favor of listening to different ideas and looking for a way to compromise or to reason together towards a resolution that works for as many people as possible. I would support a continuance, possibly, but I'd be in favor of listening to the folks that are here to speak tonight and then making that decision.
Okay, very good. Ms. Duff?
And I think we also need to hear from the applicant, because we know on properties you have to have a certain amount of revenue in order to support the project. And if what we're asking is to go below a breaking point, there's no point in continuance.
Okay, thank you. With that said, we'll hear from, I've got 10 requests to speak. We're going to hear from all 10, and then there are 33 that oppose to the project. So the first person, Brett Stephenson, if you'll come forward and speak. You have 3 minutes, followed by Stephen Harris. State your name and address. Stephen, you're on deck.
Hello, Mayor Freeman and Council. My name is Brett Stevenson. I live at 1025 West 2nd Place. My name is Brett Stevenson, and I stand before you today not just as a homeowner, but as a father, husband, and lifelong neighbor by marriage. And as someone who believes deeply in the stewardship of community, the Lofts at 121 proposal is incompatible with the identity, values, and safety of this historical Mesa neighborhood. Its approval would be a serious breach of the responsibility this council holds to protect the communities it serves. My home was built in 1944. The house on the development site was built in 1930. The neighborhood is not just aging, it's historic. It's living heritage. My wife has lived here her entire life, and we are now raising our twin 8-year-old daughters and 4-year-old son on the same streets she grew up on. People don't just come to live here, they choose to live here. They come here for the charm, the scale, the walkability, the sense of history you can't find in most Arizona neighborhoods. And that's exactly what this development threatens to erase. My children play outside, they ride bikes, we walk together. These everyday moments are possible because of the quiet, familiar, safe environment we live in. But this project would introduce dozens more vehicles, a revolving door of unfamiliar faces, a towering high-density presence incompatible with family life. It's not just a change in skyline, it's a change in what kind of neighborhood this will be, and I will not quietly accept that risk for my children. Approving this development will devalue our homes. A Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia study confirmed that homes adjacent to incompatible high-density rental developments see reduced appreciation, even long-term losses in value. This is not a project built to fit into the neighborhood. It's a project built to maximize profit at the expense of everything that makes our community desirable in the first place. All 68 units are rental only. That means no homeowners, no personal investment, no commitment to the community. Rentals, especially high-density ones, tend to have higher turnover and less accountability, and are often managed by companies with no roots in the neighborhood. We need neighbors, not a stream of short-term tenants. We need investment, not absentee oversight. This isn't just about safety, it's about predictability. Research from Indiana University and others show that high-density rentals, especially when poorly managed, lead to increased property crime and neighborhood disorder. That's not a stereotype, it's a documented reality. When people don't know each other and when ownership is absent, the social fabric frays, that puts families like mine and children like mine at risk. Our roads are narrow, our traffic is light. That's exactly why we live here. A sudden addition of dozens of new households will strain our streets and our sidewalks and our ability to walk safely and drive together. Beverly Park, already modest, will be overwhelmed. It's where families gather, and it's now being treated as an overflow space for private development with no enforceable promise of investment, expansion, or protection.
Thank you, Brett. Sorry, 3 minutes are up.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Stephen? Following Stephen, Daryl Bradshaw, if you'll be on deck, please.
My name's Stephen Harris. I live at 337 North Beverly. I approve the project. It's going to bring our property values up. It's going to clean the neighborhood up. And I live in a real old house. But the park over there in Beverly, that's a mess. That park's a mess. And it'll overlook it, keep the riffraff out of that. And I approve it, so that's all I got to say.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bradshaw. And then Owen Wood.
My name is Daryl Bradshaw. I live at 1042 West 2nd Street. My dad developed this area, Westwood Park. I moved 1 block away from where I grew up. I'm just about 80 years old. I plan to die on this property. You don't realize, but we've gone around the neighborhood. There's between Extension, Alma School, Maine, and University, there's about 3,000 condominiums, apartments, 3,000 that you can rent, be a part of. The problem with this property, there's going to be 60, 68, whatever it is. It's right behind the neighbors. I've known those neighbors for 40 years. They want to move out simply because this property is designed to go 2 stories. 2 stories, they say they're going to plant trees there. You won't be able to see into backyards. Yes. You'll be able to see into somebody's backyard that's been there for 40 years. That's wrong. You wouldn't want somebody in a 2-story apartment looking down in your backyard that you've owned for 40 years. That's terrible. Not even conscionable. Second story, the second thing that he talked about, the first person, is all these properties I talked about, almost 3,000, they all have an outlet on a major thoroughfare, on a nice street. This has one way in and one way out for 60 properties on Beverly Street. When I grew up, it was Beverly Lane, little street. Cars can't pass on that street if there's a car on the street. You have to wait till this guy passes and this guy passes. You put that many cars coming out of that into that, not only that, but you've got that huge complex on Main. I don't know what time I got left. Oh, here it is, 45 seconds. Those kids walk down our neighborhood. Those cars coming out of there, little tiny kids going to the junior high and the Emerson School down there. Those cars, that many cars coming out of there, I'm afraid they're not going to see a little. Most parents come with and walking their kids, but it's just wrong for the neighborhood. Thank you for your time. It's not good for the neighborhood.
Thank you, Mr. Bradshaw. Next, Owen Wood. Following Owen, Linda Spy, you're on deck.
Good evening to all the City Council. My name is Owen Wood. I live at 234 North Beverly. My wife and I have raised our 8 children and 27 foster kids, not all at once, but in this house on Beverly. They play up and down the street. They do some playing at the park. As it was explained to me, these were going to be homes, not rentals. Now I'm finding out that they're going to be rentals. I came here to get a little more clarity on what is actually going to be here. I was for it when they were going to be homes. But if there's going to be rentals, I'm against it. It's just, like the gentleman said, it's just going to be too much short-term in and out for this neighborhood. If it's going to be rentals, I am against this. My wife has lived in this house her entire life for the last 60 years. I've lived there for, I'm too old, I guess, for 40 years.
It's best not to count.
But like I said, I need to do some more digging on what this is actually going to be about. Find out what they're really going to be before I can really. But like I said, if it's rentals, I'm against it. If it's homes that people are going to purchase and live there, I'm for it. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. We'll have the applicant speak later. Linda? Following Linda, Mike Ziegler.
Again, my name is Linda Spy. I live at 1019 West 2nd Street. Again, I'd like to invite my neighbors to stand up, please. Come on, folks. Kids, you too. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. One of the things I'd like to say, and I'm glad you're tabling this back to more consideration, because so far we have found Mr. Boyle to be absolutely unmoving in density. Absolutely unmoving. He reduced it by 2 for parking spots, not good enough. We spoke to him at the church at the initial meeting he had and asked him to reduce it by 1/3. Won't talk about it, won't even discuss it. Nope, won't pencil out. Our neighborhood is under siege if you put these in. And since we found out that they are not guaranteed at this point to be sales, we're worried. We don't need people who don't care about our neighborhood traipsing through our neighborhood constantly. It is just not good form. Our neighborhood is an old neighborhood. We don't have wide streets. We don't have a lot of police patrols. And consequently, we have a lot of bums, homeless, or anything else you want to call them, knocking on our doors, panhandling. I've offered them, they want money, I offer them food, and they won't take it. So these people are not people we necessarily want wandering in our neighborhood. And it happens all the time. Again, I'm going to stress, we really, really need a cul-de-sac on Beverly with an EMS gate possibly, because there's no way to get into that area. But the traffic coming up Beverly is ridiculous. My husband was sitting waiting for me while I was talking to some of the neighbors, and 5 cars came up Beverly, hardly stopped at 2nd Street and continued to University. We don't need this in our neighborhood. And if you add 60 people, we're looking at another 100 cars. The exit from this project comes right out north of the park where all the kids cut through the park to go to school. These kids run, they tag, they play games, they're goofy, like kids are. One of them is gonna run out in front of a car that decided they had to be to work right now from this development and possibly get hit. We worry about our kids. We're out there every day with our kids. There's a bunch of us that just watch the kids walk home to make sure they are safe. So we're asking again, please, make Mr. Boyle understand this needs to be reduced in density significantly. We got COPA going in across the street, 35 people, maybe 36, cool. But 60 inside our neighborhood, not around our neighborhood, inside our neighborhood, just isn't appropriate. Our 2nd Street is not like 2nd Street here. It just isn't. We need you guys to really consider this to be downsized. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Next, Mike Ziegler. Mike Ziegler.
Take me a second to get warmed up.
Gotcha. After Mike, we'll hear from Jeremy Rowley.
I do. My name is Mike Ziegler. As my wife Linda Spy that just talked to you, we live at 1019 West 2nd Street. I've been that individual that's been inundating your email with all kinds of technical stuff. Basically, what I want to talk about is we put this project in and we've got the COPA going in kitty corner across the street. You figure the fact that this project will probably give us 100 kids going to school. COPA will probably give us another 30. So we're gonna have 130 kids going through 2nd Street at Beverly at the 2nd Street, where we're gonna go and have all of the cars that come out of this project. Excuse me. What I'm afraid of also is that people who come out of this complex are gonna see the traffic stopped at 2nd Street, and they're gonna go and cut through Beverly Point. As I indicated on the stuff that I sent you, the Candela had to go and close their Beverly entrance because people were cutting through to avoid the traffic light. So basically, too many cars, too many kids. And 2nd Street, if you took a look, if you witnessed it, I showed you a photograph of what that intersection looks like when we have traffic parked at it. You cannot see what's coming down east on 2nd Street. And we've had accidents there. Somebody came around the corner too quickly, didn't stop, hit a wall. Matter of fact, the wall still hasn't been repaired. So we just can't have this many people, this many kids in our neighborhood. I have given Well, let's put it this way. In the beginning, I have reached out to the architect. My first email, when I ended up sending it to Joshua, told him I was ready for it. The second one that I sent to him was reference to traffic. Nothing. I then sent something to, I think it's Evan, and he called me up a couple days later and says, have you ever talked to the architect? I said, no, he hasn't called me. A couple days later, I got a phone call from him, and all he's talked about was the trees, that the pecan trees that were there that said that were going to be transplanted are gone. They're not there anymore. Let's see. Then we had a meeting with him last, what was it, Tuesday or Wednesday, where he told us, I had a meeting, my wife, myself, and Mr. Bradshaw, had a meeting with him where he told us that this job was a done deal. The council had approved it and essentially told us we would be wasting our time. Well, obviously, when we ended up seeing the study session from last Thursday, that's not the case. And still haven't decided whether it's going to be rentals or is it going to be stuff to, are they going to be things to buy? So anyway, I thank you. Oh, my legs bothering the hell out of me.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you much.
Mr. Rowley. Jeremy?
I don't think I can get this done in 30 seconds. So
You have 3 minutes.
All right. This proposed development.
Your name and address, please.
Jeremy Rowley. I grew up on the property there at 121, and I currently live in Tempe. This proposed development is based on a heavy involvement in this area. This is not a drive-by acquisition of something done by a corporate banker at 30,000 feet. I've spent my whole life on that street. 2nd Street, south of Beverly to Main Street, is a very different animal than the internal, I'll call it the internal circle inside the Westwood neighborhood. I'm sorry to hear from Daryl. All these neighbors are my friends. We never intended for this project to ever be for rent. That was not what we were trying to do there. I was trying to play out a legacy from my childhood growing up there. I watched Carl Standage plow all the farmland that was around us. We ran cows and animals on where the park is now. And all of this was done with open arms to the neighborhood. We had live meetings for the neighbors to come. We didn't do it on Zoom because I wanted everyone to be involved. We did a traffic study to help them understand the ramifications of the traffic and also so we would know, right? I've worked with Tim and I understand I spent last weekend and went around to some of the neighbors and talked to some of them that I know and some of them that actually back up to the project. What I can tell you is it sounds like there is a lot of misinformation getting proposed to the neighborhood, and it doesn't seem like everyone is in such pushback or against it. They're willing to accept new families. I want people to enjoy the same things I did. I got my Eagle Scout Award at the Ward Building down the street. I went to the 3 schools that line up in a row. We walked from the homestead there all the way to Emerson. I mean, I went and talked to a neighbor who, it was my 5th grade teacher. It's new residents, they back up to the property. They were fully in support of it. I went down the street, talked to another neighbor who was my kindergarten teacher at Emerson. She's still alive. I think we're just getting a lot of misinformation, and unfortunately, infill projects, as you can see when you drive around, they don't pencil out at low density. It's just, you just can't do it. Not with everything that we're up against with inflation and the cost of everything. So the project design was based on the passion that my father had for homing pigeons. That's why they have those front elevations. So this wasn't something that we were just trying to boot together and you know, just pass through. There was a lot of time and effort put into this. I appreciate your guys' time. I know what you're up against, but yeah, there was a lot of time and effort. I like my whole life, 50 years on that street. So,
Thank you, Mr. Rowley.
yep.
Next, Alex Drancic. As close as I could get with it, Alex. Following him, Madison Reynolds, you're on deck. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Mayor and Council members. Alex Ranicic, District 5. I don't live in this neighborhood, but I do feel for the neighbors because I've gone through a similar situation. I would hope that if I was going through such a challenging, stressful neighborhood development, that these people would also come and support me. So I'm here to support them. And I want to make it clear that I am not against development. But almost every citizen that I've spoken with is not for more high density rental units. This is not what builds good neighborhoods. My understanding is that Mesa under Section 8 housing still has another 145 vacancies. If this is about housing, there's still availability. We want more properties being developed for purchase to own. This is what makes good communities. And high density does increase crime levels, especially when they're rental properties. I listened to the Thursday morning session, and if this development was made to own or to be able to purchase, that would be a completely different conversation from what I understood and what I heard the discussion about. Private property resolves the issue of what is called the tragedy of the commons. And the more rentals and less ownership, what ends up happening is that expression that I don't necessarily care for that goes, you will own nothing and you will be happy. So I ask you to support this community. We're not against the development, but as you heard, we are against this type of development. But as you heard, the other people that live in that neighborhood, they were led to believe that this would be for purchase to own. So I am here to support them. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Madison. After Madison, we'll hear from Evelyn Herman.
Good evening, council members. My name is Madison Reynolds. I live off 239 North Beverly, right up the street. My great-grandparents, Hansy Anderson and Manoa Richardson, raised 10 children, 8 of whom lived, worked, and thrived right here in Mesa. That includes my grandmother, Zelda Anderson Merritt, and her siblings, Darrell Anderson, Tressa Anderson McKinnon, Janet Anderson Ray, Ethelyn Anderson Ray, Ruth Anderson Threet, Lanier Anderson, and Donna Anderson Beezer. Today, hundreds of their descendants, including my own 8 children, still call Mesa home. We're proud to raise the next generation here and remain deeply invested in the future of the city we love. This isn't just about change, it's about making sure new development aligns with Mesa's vision for safe, connected, and vibrant neighborhoods. As residents of a stable, well-maintained community, we respectfully ask you to reconsider this project in light of the city's stated principles or priorities. Community safety. Hundreds of school children walk through the Beverly and 2nd Street intersection daily, which already sees hundreds of cars daily. Adding more traffic puts children at risk and contradicts the goal of building safe and healthy communities. Second, transforming neighborhoods. This project doesn't transform our neighborhood for the better. It adds congestion, reduces safety, and risks displacing engaged residents who take pride in where they live. Third, healthy environment. With 160 parking spaces and poor walkability, this development increases car reliance and undermines Mesa's climate and sustainability goals. It's not just about traffic. It's about creating a livable, breathable environment for our families and future generations. With over 800 new units already under construction nearby, we ask, why concentrate even more density in a neighborhood never designed to support it? We urge the city to honor its commitments and to listen to those of us living this reality every day. We're not against growth, but we are asking for balance. I'm hopeful the city and developer can compromise. At a minimum, we would ask for a reduction in the number of units. And by closing Beverly at 2nd Street with an EMS accessible cul-de-sac to better protect our residents and especially our children. My own mother, Arliss Reynolds, she was the first graduate at Westwood High School. This is where she grew up. This is what she calls home. My wife graduated from Westwood. This is where we call home. So thank you for listening, and I appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Madison. Evelyn. Following Evelyn will be Kyle Greenhall or Greenhoff.
Mayor, Council, thank you. My name is Evelyn Herman. I live with my husband and 2 kids, aged 10 and 5, on the corner of 2nd Street in Beverly. The corner of our backyard is just across the street from the northeast corner of the proposed development. We bought our home in 2020, and I'm from a small town, very, very small town, and Mesa has elements that feel like home to our family. We really enjoyed becoming part of the neighborhood, part of the community, and we really love our little special little pocket here in our what we consider our historic neighborhood. My concerns for this are not so much for development. I believe in development. I believe in property rights and the right to affect progress in the community. But my concerns center around not the density of the homes per se, which I understood were to be for sale. That seems like it's to be addressed. But more so the cars and traffic as my kids get to the age where they are exploring the neighborhood more on their own, walking to their friend's house. The things that as we welcome this development, as we welcome new neighbors into our community, I'm just hoping that adequate time is going to be, that we're going to look at things like speed bumps, crosswalks, there's been talk of traffic circles, road closures even, additional easements. This development exits onto Beverly, which is a small street, so just making sure that can support the traffic. The other thing I'd like to address is the Beverly Park. As we are welcoming new families, I hope to have young families move in that my kids can play with. We're open to that, but that our park, Beverly Park, can be a place that not only is enjoyable for my family, but that as people come to look at these homes, as I understood, for sale, to put their roots down in our neighborhood as well and be our neighbors, that they would look at our park as a benefit to them and not something that they should be afraid of, that they don't want to be next to the things that do go on there. I understand that the lighting from this development is going to bring some positives, and I see the positives and negatives of this, but I appreciate your time and consideration. We trust in the process that you guys are considering all these things and that you want the best for our neighborhood. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Evelyn. Kyle? After Kyle, we'll hear from the applicant.
Good evening. My name is Kyle Greenhall. I live at 101 North Beverly. Outside of the current renters of the properties, I think I'm the closest living person here that lives next to the affected property here at the Loss. I bought my house about 15 years ago, and as far as I know, I'm probably the only owner of any property that lives in their house south of 2nd Street. Jeremy was correct to say that it is a little bit different neighborhood south of 2nd Street where I live next to the park. I was even, well, I won't go into that. I was born and raised in Mesa. I love Mesa. I graduated not from Mesa schools, but I am sending my children to Mesa schools, and I'm looking forward to the education they'll receive. I spent the last 5 or 10 years of my dear friend Jana Rowley's life caring for her pigeons that she kept in those pigeon coops, and my kids had tons of fun in her backyard. I love that property. I love that it was a fun, adventurous place for my kids to go with and without permission and explore. I think our children need more of that kind of opportunity to roam and not necessarily be caged. I love my neighbors. Believe it or not, I am currently serving as a bishop of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which many of our members live in this neighborhood. And I know that I've offended many of them with my stance and desire to invite and encourage more people that want to live in Mesa to have the opportunity to do so. I put my trust in the pluralist society that we live in, that we can come together to find solutions to the challenges that we're facing. Personally, I have paid for 2 traffic studies and even volunteered to pay for speed humps to be installed on my street, because as one person that lives on the more crowded part of Beverly, I am well aware of the speeders. I wish I could say the speeders in my neighborhood only did not live in my neighborhood, but unfortunately I can't say that. Again, I hope for further conversations, and I hope for the opportunity where we can come together to both preserve the good things of this neighborhood, but also allow for more people who are looking for good, safe, wonderful places to live to have the opportunity to live here as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. Applicant, if you'll come forward, and then after that we'll hear from planning, either Mary or Evan, summarize everything we've heard.
Thank you, members of council. Is this loaded up, Evan? Yeah. Mayor, members of council, thank you very much for allowing me to present this project, the lofts at 121 North Beverly. And though they're behind me, I'd like to thank all of the members of the neighborhood who came out to the 3 meetings that we had and the many emails we exchanged and everything like that. Since I'm also from this neighborhood, though slightly to the north, I feel like the neighborhood process and including the neighbors is an essential component to that. And I always welcome those conversations. I'm also a graduate of Westwood High School. I live about 1/3 of a mile from this development. I was also friends with Mrs. Rowley and Jerry Rowley. Spent a lot of time in their property. I was the home teacher of the Rowleys with my grandfather for a period of time. And also Elena, who's the house to the north. I've feasted on her blackberries for the last 10 years. So I'm a big fan of this neighborhood as well. I told this story in the previous meeting, but I want to bring it back up. When my grandfather, he had been an active member of his community. He was the city attorney for many years in the city of Mesa from about 1950 to 1980. As he aged, they needed to find a place to move into, and there was nothing in the neighborhood. We don't have a generational neighborhood, and so the place that he and my grandmother chose to move was over by the cornfields. And suddenly they were displaced from their neighborhood. Their close neighbors were gone. We of our family who lived down the street couldn't walk over and visit them anymore. They had no place to retire in the neighborhood, so they went elsewhere and were then unknown. The years of service, the things that they had done were no longer a part of their identity in this new neighborhood. When I was attending meetings, when I first came back to Mesa, I joined a group and they were against all development. And as I came to understand neighborhoods and neighborhood meetings and what neighborhoods need to grow, I understood, well, we need to have good developments in neighborhoods, and older neighborhoods need density in order to progress. Quick question, am I allowed to do a full presentation, or do I only have the 3 minutes?
Good question. We'll give you a couple extra minutes.
Okay, then I'll go through this.
How long is your presentation?
How
many slides?
It's probably 5 to 8 minutes.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. You see here a rendering of the images. The location, I think, is well known to all of you. These are the properties right here. One thing that we considered is I've done many developments like this. We considered, as we were discussing the density, we said, well, we're close to the light rail, which asks for an additional amount of density, but we're also right next to a neighborhood, so we don't want too much density. We don't want 90 units. And we're also next to a park. And so anytime you do a development and it's next to a large amenity, you can consider that amenity as part of the, if people are looking for a place to stay, they don't need to stick on their property in a dog park or in a pool. They can use the park next door. We have other projects that we've done next to canals, and we consider the canals to also be an amenity for them. And so as we designed the entire project, we considered Beverly Park to be part of the amenity. Some of the neighbors here have talked about the relationship between Beverly Park and the neighborhood. Beverly Park currently has, I don't think it's well lit at night. There's high crime. I think Councilmember Duff discussed that. The crime rate is coming down, but there's still a lot of nervousness about it. As I approached this project and said, what would I want in my neighborhood? One of the common ideas in urban design and urban planning is to have eyes on the street. And so you want to have people that are looking out over problematic areas to call if anything untoward happens. And so we put our three-story units right along the park, right there for that purpose. And you can see how they relate to the park in this slide. A little bit about the architecture design. I know that the Design Review Board saw this. They thought the architecture was fine. The Planning and Zoning Board saw this as well. So we're not requiring that council members be experts on architecture. But the architecture was modeled after the racing pigeon lofts that Jerry Rowley had. I believe there are 3 or 4 on the property. So technically, there's more of this architecture on the property than there is on the house in front. Racing pigeons is a kind of a quirky, interesting field. But as you can see, it's growing in interest, and racing pigeons are now commanding sums almost $2 million. So things that were small and quirky in old times could become new and interesting as new generations move forward. A few more views. This would be the view over the pool, looking into the park area from the units that are next to the pool. View from the park of the units looking over the park. And then another view of, this is the private amenity space of this area. And we haven't asked for any reduction in the required amount of private amenity space in this project. We've just considered we could consider additional density because we have the park next to us. This is the layout of the project, and this is the landscape architecture for it. As you'll see, there's a large row of trees going across the top right here. That's to protect views from the units to the neighbors and from the neighbors to the views. And that's to allow us to have a big separation between those yards where the single-family homes are in the back. You see, we put the trees in. The goal is to keep the windows from being able to see in the yards, like so. So this would be if you were in the backyards of those neighborhoods, you would have these trees that would keep you from being able to see. This is a site study that we did showing where the units are, with the units being 30 feet away on the east side of the property and almost 39 feet away on the west side of the property, and these are the houses. And so you would have these trees that are planted in there to block any views, any additional views between them. Some suggestions have been, well, why don't you do single-family homes in here? Single-family homes are allowed to have a 5-foot setback along the street. And so a single-family home, a 2-story single-family home, would be looking quite a bit farther into the yard and be quite a bit closer. And that's one of the reasons that I've come to favor these townhome-style developments. This is what the units look like. Each unit has a 2-car garage. Each unit you walk in, there's a kitchen, dining, and living space. The units, there are 2 different types. This is the 2-story type. We put the 2-story types closer to the neighborhood, again, to keep the views to a minimum. You go upstairs to a flex space, a large master suite, walk-in shower and tub, master suite, and then 2 large bedrooms up top. These are the 3-story units, the one that are right along the park. Also, each one of them has a 2-car garage, a large kitchen, dining, living space, master suite, and then 2 bedrooms on the top. This is one we've recently finished over on University. You can see the quality that we're going for. Again, we're always trying to design these things to work like small houses, or not even small houses. Many of these projects are 1,400 to 1,600 square feet, and we design them with the amenities, the top amenities, so that they will be desirable for purchase. The garages, we choose to use garages when we do our projects because we want them to feel like houses. And this is the Allen. You can see how the garage doors are used, the garages are used there. There's often some concerns that people will fill their garages with stuff and not be able to park their cars there. That has not been our experience in these. We compare these to the parking garages that are common in the most, like Optima, the most fancy condos in the valley. And if you think about the experience of coming home, pulling into a parking garage, walking to an elevator, carrying your groceries to the top, then going to your room, we feel that ours are a vastly better way of getting in and out of your house by taking the drive aisle to your garage and then walking right into your kitchen. The main concerns that we've heard as we've met with the neighbors are the density. But density is not a bad thing in and of itself. It's the effects of density. Property values is a concern, crime, traffic, and parking. This is the Allen. You can see the density of the Allen. This is the other one, 2436 West University. You can see that both of these projects are along the canal, and we considered the canal to be part of the amenity space, though both of them have small amenity spaces on their own. That's in comparison to ours. This is a project just around the corner, Metro on Main. You can see that the property values are still high. These are, I think, 10 or older, 10 years or more. They're still selling in the $450,000. This was our model for this project because it's just around the corner on Main Street, across from the Fry's, right there. You also see from this that the property values of the houses nearby aren't negatively affected by these townhomes that come in. This is just a larger image. This is that same group of units right down here. And this is the Allen right here, and you can see that property values don't diminish near that as well. Another project, patio homes, where the property values don't diminish. There's a concern about crime. This is the crime statistics in the area around the Allen, which we've been able to study for many years. This is prior to it being built, and as I cycle through these, you'll see that there's not a significant increase in crime from before or after it's built. This is the year it was built, 2018, and you'll see the crime rate doesn't move significantly. It goes down in some areas, it goes down. So we have not seen a noticeable increase in crime. Traffic, there will be an increase in traffic, and that's why we had a traffic study done. When you summarize what the traffic study says, they say it generates a total of 446 daily trips, which is entering and exiting. And the peak hours with the most cars will have 28 trips in the AM peak hour and 35 trips during the PM peak hour. So 35 trips in the PM peak hour is about 1 car every 2 minutes of increased traffic in that neighborhood. You can see the effect. It's going to add 111 this way, 179 this way, and then smaller numbers over here. And then when you add it to the existing traffic, 507, 368, you get 618 total, 547 total, and these other numbers further down there. The traffic study did consider traffic calming measures, and I know that's a concern of the neighborhood. And we've encouraged them to continue to pursue traffic calming measures. There was a study done prior that did not say it even warranted the speed cushions, so that's still to be done. So our research and other research has shown that the property values has no effect, the crime there's no effect, the traffic will increase by about 1 car every 2 minutes. The parking, we have the, every unit has 2 parking spaces, and there are 7 required per code. We've provided 18. And this is near the Mesa, this is near the light rail where you can ask for a reduction. Since these are supposed to work like houses, we didn't ask for a reduction. Just a couple responses to questions. The project is always intended to be for sale. In response to Mr. Wood's question, it's planned from day one, as Mr. Rowley said. There are different ways that you can make a project for sale. You can take it through as a potentially rental project. You can subdivide it afterward. You can condoize it. There are many methods to do it. As we looked back through the city, there are many condos built in the 70s, or many apartments built in the 70s that became condos in the 2000s. It's not a big process if you've designed it intending to make it for sale, which was the design that we did. I agree with Mrs. Spy on the cul-de-sacs. I think many of the older neighborhoods in Mesa could use less entrances to them, just so that there's less thoroughfares. We have one right around our street, because we have the other side of Beverly. People come in and bring in their kids to school. The traffic is really heavy during those times. For Mr. Ziegler, I'm sorry if there was a misunderstanding. I don't believe I said that council had already decided. I said we were talking to council and working with them on that, so I'm sorry if there was a misunderstanding. Those are that's my presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions from council.
Council, any questions for the applicant? Or would you like to hear from staff?
Mayor, I'd like to just make one comment. I noticed on your site plan, it was the old one and not the one with the reduction of units.
Oh, did we have something outdated?
Yeah.
That's right. I'm sorry. That is not correct. The aerial has a better view of
Since
that.
we're on your presentation, if we can go back to the relationship to Beverly Park, that image, a little further back. Oh, right there. Right, stop.
This is the accurate plan.
Yeah, if you, Council, if you notice the houses to the left side, to the west side, those are townhomes. So townhomes do exist in this neighborhood. Currently, apartments are on the west side of this development. Mobile home park is to the south. So I just want to make those references. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, and there's townhomes more on behind Westwood.
Do you mean to the east?
That would be to the east.
There's townhomes on the east side, there's townhomes on the west side, and there's a mobile home park on the south side.
Mr. Adams, you had a question?
Mayor, if we're going to hear from staff, which I assume we are, I may have some questions for Mr. Boyle, but I'd rather hear from staff before we get into that. Is that our plan?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. I'll reserve my questions then.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Baumler or Mary?
Thank you, Mayor Freeman and council. I'll start, and then Evan will join me up on the podium, and we'll also here, and he'll come to the podium, and we'll be able to tag team with any of the questions that you have. I do want to clarify the ownership. Right now, we do not have an application in for ownership. It is for a multifamily residential project. As we talked about in the meeting on Thursday, they would have to come back at a later date to modify the PAD that is being requested today for the rezoning, and we'd have to work through the utilities and some of the retention concerns. So the project before City Council today is a for rent project. I also wanted to talk about the density. As was indicated, the applicant did lose the 2 units based on the meeting with the City Council back in February. They did reduce it by those 2 units to be able to break up the massing, which I think was a major concern of the council at that meeting. So they have reduced it. They're at 21 units per acre, which is probably a medium density type of development, not necessarily a high density project. With the traffic and the cul-de-sac on Beverly, they did do the traffic study, and I know Eric Guderian is here if you have questions about cul-de-sacing Beverly, so he'll be able to answer any questions that you might have on that. We did also work with the applicant on the overall design of the project to maybe simplify it a little without him losing the integrity of what he was trying to portray as it related to the pigeon coops. So they did simplify and modify some of the design of the site. And then as it relates to the schools, that was, I think, the last comment that we heard. We have not received any concerns from the schools related to this project, but we will follow up with them tomorrow.
Okay, very good. Council, any questions for staff?
Yes, I would like to have Eric come forward and talk about the possibilities of a cul-de-sac. It's been brought forward to me multiple times, and so I would just like to get some insight. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. My name is Eric Guderian. I'm the Interim Transportation Director. I think so. Mary brought this concept to us this morning, and as we talk about cul-de-sacs, typically cul-de-sacs in Mesa are much shorter than this. When we talk about cul-de-sacing from Main Street. We'd have to make it all the way almost up to Second Street for a cul-de-sac. It's almost a quarter mile, about 1,300 feet. City code for the longest cul-de-sac that we should have is 400 feet. A lot of that has to do with.
He's too tall.
Sorry, I'll talk into the. So, city code says that we should have our maximum cul-de-sac length should be 400 feet. This cul-de-sac length would be 1,300 feet. A lot of that is for emergency service and making sure that emergency services can get to wherever they need to go. In addition, if we do dead end a street, we have to make it a cul-de-sac, and we have to be able to provide a turnaround in public right-of-way for traffic if they get stuck, that they have to turn around and be able to do that safely. We would need additional right-of-way on the street to do that. And so I think in theory, it sounds like a good idea, but it's going to be very difficult in this neighborhood to be able to retrofit a street with a cul-de-sac, even if we allow emergency access from a gate on the north side.
Okay. Ms. Spilsbury.
Can you address the theory that a more crowded street with more traffic actually slows traffic down and makes it safer? That we've heard that. Is that true?
I would say in theory, yes. Especially when we have, these are 32-foot wide streets. If we have more parking, we have more traffic on them, it's more congested and you're going to have to slow down. I think my staff, I will concur. We've been out there quite a few times to take traffic studies to see if the street meets our warrants for speed humps, and it hasn't yet. The speeds haven't been high enough. The volumes are there, but there's available. I think by adding this, there's going to be more congestion on the street. Hopefully, traffic will slow down.
And it looked like in the traffic study that speed humps weren't warranted, but if the neighborhood wanted them, they would go through the normal process then to get a petition or whatever, right? Is that how that works?
Correct. They've gone through the process to have the studies done, and up until this time, they haven't met that criteria.
And as far as traffic concerns go, those would be the same for whether it's a rental or ownership property.
Correct. The traffic generated, whether it's ownership or rental, we really look at the unit type. That's not going to change whether it's owned or a rental.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Goforth.
So you said the speed humps aren't warranted because of the speeds or the volume?
The traffic speeds when we've been out there, and the consultant that the developer hired this fall took additional speed counts. They're essentially the same as what we took in 2022. The speeds were not high enough to qualify for speed humps and speed cushions.
Okay, and then the capacity of the road is what, as it sits right now? What is the capacity for trips?
So I think we don't look at neighborhood streets as capacity. We want to fill them up, right? And so there's about 500 vehicles a day on Beverly. This development will add another 400 to 500 trips on Beverly. And so that's, a trip is either coming in or going out. So when you make a trip, that counts, when you're going from your house and then back, that's 2 trips. So we're right around the 1,000 mark. 1,000 trips a day on a residential street is still something we find very, it's normal. I know it's busier than what it's been in the past, but it's not something we're concerned about, that all of a sudden there's too many vehicles in the neighborhood.
And when we say Beverly, are you saying from 2nd Street to Main, or all the way to University?
So specifically when I say that 500 number, that's the section of Beverly between 2nd Street and Main.
Okay, so it's nearly doubling it.
Correct.
But Eric, did you say the normal traffic on a residential street is about how many? And just like an average street? We don't have.
It depends on the neighborhood and how long the street is, how many houses are accessing it. But, a neighborhood street with 1,000 vehicles a day is not something that we are, not accustomed to seeing in Mesa.
Mr. Adams.
Eric, I'm not sure if this is, the broad question is entirely for you or perhaps the planning director, but I'll go ahead and ask it and you can take it from there. If this development, hypothetically, if this were somewhere else, say up north of McKellips, would you expect the same amount of vehicular traffic from it there as you do here? Would that be a reasonable assumption?
Mayor, Councilmember Adams, it's a reasonable assumption. While this is close to transit, we haven't taken any sort of the consultant that did the traffic study didn't take any sort of reduction in trips because it's close to transit. The numbers that we use as a profession are averages across multiple similar type housing products across the nation. And so we haven't, the numbers here haven't taken any sort of reduction because of the proximity to the light rail and to bus.
Thank you. I think you anticipated the direction of my question. So then further, I'm confused here. This has been presented several times as a transit-oriented development or appropriate to be located next to the light rail. My question then is, why so many vehicular trips if it's to appeal to the light rail's transportation mode, and why over 120 spaces to park cars if it's supposed to be transit-oriented development? That doesn't connect in my mind.
Mayor, Councilmember Adams, I think that when we look at transit-oriented development and we're really looking at those areas where cars are limited directly adjacent to the light rail, that is where you'll see less parking, less cars. I think we're still up Beverly a little bit. So people who live in this area, they will have a 2-car garage so that they have that option of either using those cars or going down to use the light rail transit. So it is in a transit area, but it is not necessarily adjacent to that light rail station, but it is accessible to them by walking down Beverly.
How much closer would it have to be?
So typically, a transit-oriented development is done around the specific stop, and there's maybe a circle of maybe 1/8 to 1/4 of a mile around that circle that you really look at. That's where you're capturing the people who are going to walk there.
And how far is this? 1/4 mile? Not quite?
I think it's probably a little bit more than 1/4 of a mile to the stop.
2 blocks.
Okay, I can't make that connection in my mind, but thank you. Appreciate it.
Any more questions for Eric? Thank you, Eric. So council, I made a suggestion here earlier as we started through. I'm sorry, Ms. Spy, you've had your turn. Please, it's our turn. Thank you. I would still like to offer a continuation on this and not proposing a specific return date to allow the applicant, the neighbors, and staff to work on this, because I'm getting some conflicting information. The applicant says it's a for sale product, yet staff is saying it is a for rent product. There's 2 different processes there. So I think in all fairness to everyone that we should do a continuance to allow this to work out to everyone involved. And I know it's a difficult decision, and I know some want to move forward with it, but I don't think we have any time constraints here. I think we can let it work out to the best of ability and come back in the future. And whatever future, it could be 30 days, it could be shorter. But with that said, council, if it's okay, I'll ask for a motion for continuance for staff to work with the applicant.
And I am opposed to that motion, and
Okay.
I would like to say a couple of things before we vote whether to go forward on that. Is, first of all, for sale or for rent, we have not used that as a criteria for any zoning case since I've been on council, and even before I was on planning and zoning before. So now we're going for 9 years. It has never been part of our purview to approve or not approve according to if it is for rent or for sale. The fair housing law doesn't allow the city to discriminate based on rental versus owner in our housing, so why should we in our development? I do not think that is the criteria to extend this. And there is a rush because the developer, the landholder, is incurring payments every month that we delay on this. The longer you stretch it out, the more expensive it becomes, and the less likely they think they can make the project pencil. Thus, if they do make it pencil, now those costs are being added into the price of housing. So, as a criteria for sale or for rent, take it off the table. And I have many other comments as far as the development. I think we've heard from as many people opposed to the development as we have for the development. I can't say that in my experience or here tonight that is overwhelmingly against. So I am opposed to the motion.
Thank you. Mr. Adams?
Oh, there we go. Just a couple comments that I'd like to make, since it seems that I may have been the council member at the earlier study session who may have broached this issue of for sale or rent, but that was only because I was contacted by a couple of individuals who told me specifically that it was for sale. I didn't seek that information out. It was presented to me. So, but I'd like to point out that we have this thing called a balanced housing plan. And it has 5 criteria. Let's call them 5 pillars. And one of them, number 5, says, explore opportunities to encourage home ownership. It's right here. And unless I'm mistaken, Mr. Smith, is this still in force and effect, this balanced housing plan?
It is. If you want me to give some context also on sort of the ability for zoning to require ownership versus rental, I can also answer that question. What do you want?
That wouldn't be my question. Another council member may have that question, but I simply refer to the balanced housing plan as making one of its 5 pillars that statement, and that obviously is there for a reason. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to continue as you've suggested.
Thank you.
Can we still make comments if the motion's been made?
Yeah.
Okay. Until I just would, I would support the continuance if I felt like the neighborhood was willing to come together to work on this. And I don't know if people can nod their heads or if they're like, no, we don't want to work on this. I don't know, because I don't want to say, yeah, let's continue it and then just have the neighborhood still not willing to budge on anything. And so I would like to see some willingness in the neighborhood to work with the developer, and then I would feel better about continuing it.
We'd like them to work with us.
Exact, both sides working together, not just the neighbors compromising, but also the developer seeing where they can also make some, I don't like the word compromise, but just make some concessions to come up with a better project would be what I would like to see.
So, Mr. Smith, you're going to give us some guidance on the zoning cases that you're referring to?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, just for context on ownership versus rental. Zoning cases aren't a vehicle for requiring either ownership or rental. and we wouldn't be able to enforce those. And let me just give it you two sort of practically. They could plat this property and it could look like it's going to be for sale, and maybe it even is for sale and ultimately gets sold. But then ultimately the buyer could be either one purchaser or multiple purchasers that ultimately rent out all the property. So it ends up being all rental property. We don't enforce ultimately ownership, and especially if it's ownership and residing with the owner. But with that said, the context, as we discussed in the last study session, was that the developer came forward and said that this was going to be for ownership. And then staff pointed out that that would require some additional steps. And so I think it's fair to say that if they're going to present it as ownership, well then through a continuance, they could go through those additional steps at this point to at least create the potential for ownership. In other words, we're not requiring ownership. We're saying you're saying it's going to be ownership. As staff has pointed out, there's some other steps to even make it possible for ownership. And so why don't we go through those steps? Ultimately, they might not sell, or they might sell to us one person that ultimately does rent out all the property. So we're not requiring ownership versus rental. We're facilitating the potential of ownership that the developer has indicated that they want. And whether, I'll also point this out, whether or not it's rental or ownership, all the concerns that the neighbors have said apply equally to the extent that they apply and are valid. I'm not trying to say that, I'm not trying to take position on this, but density, line of sight concerns, traffic, all those concerns are the same, whether or not it's rental or ownership. So those points are equally valid either way. And the last point I'll make, and it's a question that Councilmember Goforth asked me at the end of the study session last time, is this is a legislative act. You have full discretion to approve or deny this case. And so ultimately it's within your discretion. And there's been many reasons stated to approve or to deny this case. And so there's adequate grounds for approval or denial. Thank you, Council.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Mr. Adams. If there's a second, we can vote.
I'll second.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Thank you. We'll go ahead and vote for continuance. Motion passes for continuance, and we'll hear from the applicant and others later. Thank you very much.
Who voted for me?
He's Vice Mayor. How do you vote?
Yes, I vote aye.
Okay. Thank you. Before we move forward, I want to recognize Senator David Farnsworth is here. Senator, are you still here? You're a real champion. Thanks for hanging out with us so late in the evening. Next, we're going to hear from some citizens, our speaker comment card. I'm going to have all 9 of you speak. Typically, we don't do that. Typically, we just have the first 3. And we've had more than 3 tonight, so bear with us. Our first will be Lawrence Newton. Lawrence, if you'll come forward if you're still here and speak. And following Lawrence will be Allison Burton. You want to speak in the phone, sir?
Oh.
Pull it closer to you, maybe.
Yeah.
It should come forward.
My name is Lawrence Newton, and I live at 7632 East Sienna Morena Street in Los Angeles. And the reason I'm here is that I've lived there for over 5 years now, and the traffic that we have had in Los Angeles has grown from the way it was supposed to be. There are 3,400 plus homes in the area.
Excuse me, sir. Those in the back, if you want to step out through the doors to speak, that'd be great. Well, then we need to shut the doors. Officers, if you could make sure the door's shut too. All right. We're going to let you start over, okay? So you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. There have been so many things that have happened in Los Angeles through that time. It's an area where you have a lot of seniors, a lot of families with kids, and the big issue is that they have, pedestrians in the area have no crosswalks within a 9-mile area of roads. And I say that because there is one area that I helped Joe Draper at the time, who takes care of these areas for the walks and the stop signs. And they finally gave the only intersection in there a 4-way stop along with crosswalks. And it made me happy. It's doing its thing. It's not 100%, but most people are adhering to that. And all the other roads on the interior have none. No crosswalks whatsoever, no stop signs to make pedestrians safe. I walk a lot. I've walked every inch of Los Angeles. And the people that I talk to and run in, I love Los Angeles. It's a great area. But they're scared a lot of times about even just crossing the street. I've seen kids stuck in the middle of the medians that are in Los Angeles. And people just standing there not knowing if it's busy or whatever. To cross, I mean, so that's what is making this so dangerous. Speed limit signs, you can take them down. And I know Council Member Goforth understands what I'm talking about.
You have another 30 seconds. Sorry to put some
Could I extend it
constraints.
just a little bit, because this is really important?
Sure.
Thank you very much. The school has 2 crosswalks in front of it. They have a crosswalk down at the end of one of the roads, and then they have, people for when they're in and out of school, but no other crosswalks in a 3-way area that people have to cross. And the other areas have 0. And I've looked at it, and I've talked to Joe, and he says they've been analyzing this since I've started talking to him 5 years ago. And what angers me, I've been in 2 incidents myself where cars were speeding so fast, I had to worry about my dog that was with me and kind of going in, and I have a bad leg. And I crashed into the high side of the curb and ended up falling into it and breaking 3 ribs. And just recently, back in November, the 4-way stop that we have, I was walking my dog back, and I was in the middle of the crosswalk, and the vehicle, a construction vehicle, or I should say a contractor vehicle, which we get a lot of them in there, and they don't adhere to any of the laws, almost hit me. If I hadn't stopped, both myself and my dog probably would have been dead, because he was going, I'd probably say at least 45 to 50. And I've learned to listen to the cars and stuff to see how fast they're going. You can hear them when you're on the roads, that the difference in the speeds. So what I'd like to see is, because we're talking about paint and stop signs here, not a great deal of money. And what's angered me even more lately is the fact that the gentleman that just got killed, an 81-year-old guy trying to cross the road, because there is no crosswalks, no stop signs. I went down because I live in the area. Could I give you a map of what I'm talking about?
You can hand it to the clerk here.
Okay. I've got 5 of them for you. This will make it a little easier for you.
Lawrence, can you take about 30 more seconds, please? We have some more
Okay.
to speak.
Well, let's put it this way. When you look at the map, there's couple different ways you can come into Los Andes, but I live on the second red circle going up from the bottom of the page, where Mountain Ridge and Ridgecrest comes in. This is where the gentleman was trying to cross before. So I walked down to see it, and by some chance, I ran into his wife and his son down there placing flowers there. And I felt so bad that her husband was killed that my remorse was just so much for her, and my love for her was so much. And this is what I've been trying to prevent. I know from what I've heard there have been more deaths before then, but I don't know that for sure. But it makes me angry that in such a beautiful place that we can't have safety for the pedestrians. And I don't understand why, because it's so simple and very cost effective to do what I'm talking about. And all those circles that you have here, those are the areas that need it the most right now.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Allison?
Thank you, Mayor Freeman and City Council members, for the opportunity to address you today. My name is Allison Burton, and I live in District 6. Tonight, I am here representing a group who values diversity and inclusion. But first, I would like to share some of my personal experiences. I've lived in the East Valley since I was 8, and I've been raising my kids in Mesa since 2011. I've spent the last 12 years working with special needs children in schools. In the classrooms I work in, some kids can talk, some rely on electronic devices. Some use wheelchairs or walkers, some have autism or Down syndrome. There are times when I brought my own children to school so that they could become comfortable interacting with kids who have different abilities. Because if you're not exposed to people who are different, they can seem intimidating or scary. Although my students are young now, they will become adults in our community someday. I have a sister who is significantly visually impaired. She navigates by memorizing the layout of buildings and relies on her guide dog. She also happens to have her master's degree and is a teacher in Mesa. She could justifiably stay home and receive government assistance, but because of workplace accommodations, is able to hold a teaching position. It would probably be easier to hire a sighted employee, but I am infinitely grateful for the opportunity she has to be employed and be supported at her workplace. In special education, I work with families very much like my own, and I've also worked with families from a variety of backgrounds, including those coming from Mexico, India, and Afghanistan. I've worked with divorced co-parents, same-sex couples, foster parents, very young parents, and deaf families, among others. Before I started working outside of the home, I thought my way was the best way, my religion, my traditions. My circle of friends were also very similar to me. It wasn't until I was exposed to such a variety of cultures, religions, and traditions that I realized they were all wonderful in their own way. I came to understand that there's always something to learn and respect from those who are different from me. Even though people may practice their values in different ways, I've learned that we all share the same core values. We all want our family members to feel loved. We all want our family members to give and receive respect and to be treated with fairness. We all want them to feel safe wherever they go. Tonight, I am the spokesperson for a group that is here to support a diverse and welcoming community. The people here represent all political parties, differing religions, and various cultures. They have loved ones who are veterans, who have disabilities, who are LGBTQ+, who are autistic. Look around this room. Together, we are Mesa. If you are proud to be a resident of the city of Mesa and would like to join me in thanking Mayor Freeman and the City Council, please stand if you are able or raise your hand. Please continue to stand if you would like to encourage our elected leaders to continue to foster a welcoming and inclusive city for all. Thank you, Mayor Freeman and City Council members for bringing us together and building a community we can all be proud of.
Thank you, Allison. Thank you for your advocacy. Next, we'll hear from Landon Phillips. Landon, following him is Monica Phillips. Your name and address, 3 minutes.
Landon Phillips. I live in Dobson Glen in District 3. Good evening, Mayor Freeman and Council. I'm so glad to be here. I've never attended a council meeting, so this has all been very new and exciting and terrifying, so I really appreciate you hearing me out.
Join the crowd.
I've lived in Mesa since 2018, first in Eastmark and now as a homeowner in Dobson Ranch. And as a new homeowner, it was really important to me to find a home in Mesa. I've had great experience after great experience in the city. I'm enjoying becoming more involved in our community. Taking a big leap in that tonight, but I've really been enjoying growing with the community. And despite initially planning to stay in Arizona for only a few years, I love being a Mesa resident. I want to stay, and I want to spend my time here giving back to this city and this community because it's provided me with so many opportunities for education, work, housing, and friendships. In my time living in Arizona, I've been able to work in recreational sports, including working to bring hockey and figure skating opportunities to Mesa. I've worked for the Arizona Coyotes, the floral industry, the nonprofit and advocacy sphere, a little bit of everything. I love music, art, film, writing, spending time with my family who also live in and love Mesa. And I say all that just to say that I am your average run-of-the-mill Mesa resident, and I just so happen to be transgender. My experience has been like most of yours. It's true that some things have been different for me because of the way I'm seen and treated by people who haven't gotten to know me yet. And having lived my life under society's expectations for both men and women, I have been able to see life just through a unique lens. These small differences can be challenging at times, but they've also made me a more compassionate neighbor, a more thoughtful leader, a harder worker, and a stronger person. My differences make me an asset to this community, not a hindrance or a danger. I'm proud to be a Mesa resident, and I'm so grateful for the non-discrimination protections that have allowed me to live my life just as normally as everyone else. That kind of safety and confidence is not a privilege that every trans person has. I imagine that the wide array of experiences, needs, and ideas in our community can make your jobs very difficult, but it is also what makes Mesa strong. Thank you for the work you do to make sure that all of us, no matter our differences, can live in peace. I encourage you to safeguard those protections so that Mesa can continue to thrive as a united community. It's a scary time for me right now and many others. I don't want to be reduced to a generalized ideology, a political tool, or a sacrificial lamb for a movement that seeks to divide our community. I just want to live my life and give back where I can. I have your backs, and I hope that you will continue to have mine. Thank you.
Thank you, Landon. Following Monica, we'll hear from Carrie Davis.
That's my kid. Good evening, Mayor Freeman and City Council members. Thank you for having me here again tonight. My name is Monica Phillips, and I've lived in Mesa, District 6, for 7 years. And if it means anything to anybody here, I'm also a registered Republican. I gave a public comment at the last meeting, and during that comment, I thanked Councilmember Julie Spilsbury for her incredible service in our community. I'm returning this evening to address what is happening to Councilmember Spilsbury in a more direct manner, because I think many, even in this room, don't really understand what is really truly going on. First of all, I want to thank all of you for your service on the City Council. I know this is not an easy time to be an elected official. I'm sure you are as concerned as I am that your colleague, Councilwoman Julie Spilsbury, is being targeted by Turning Point USA, an organization that is not a part of our Mesa community. In fact, their funding for the campaign targeting Julie Spilsbury comes 100% from outside our community, as they disclose clearly on their flyers. Their intent is to scare elected leaders like you into compliance with their political agenda. They have no interest in representing your constituents. They are trying to intimidate the elected leaders and residents of Mesa, and they hope that if they successfully challenge Councilwoman Spilsbury, that they will be able to do this to other council members in Mesa and elsewhere This attack on Councilmember Spilsbury is not only bad for her and her district, it is bad for the city of Mesa and the state of Arizona. We cannot allow outsiders to decide who should and who should not be on our city council. And I'm afraid if that collectively we don't stand up to this, both as elected officials and residents, we are setting a bad precedent. We cannot let this happen. I am here tonight as a Mesa resident, a Mesa voter, and as your constituent, Mayor Freeman and Vice Mayor Summers. I am here tonight to ask you and the entire council to stand up to the bullying and intimidation campaign of Turning Point USA by joining Councilwoman Spilsbury's long list of public supporters. Residents of Mesa, get the word out. Send an email to council@mesaaz.gov. And residents of District 2, don't sign petitions and don't accept the money they are trying to buy your vote with. Yes, they are allowed to pay up to $6 for your vote. In fact, I'd like to just invite citizens who are in attendance tonight to please quietly stand if you can support this message of not allowing outside organizations to come in and make decisions that should be left to your constituents. And please remain standing if you can support Councilmember Julie Spilsbury. Councilmember Spilsbury was recently re-elected with an overwhelming support of her district's voters. I hope all will join me in not only supporting Councilwoman Spilsbury, but also in standing up for local control and the democratic process where Mesa voters elect our leaders, not outsiders. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Monica. Following Mr. Davis, Antoinette Andruzzi. Hopefully that's right, somewhat close.
Good evening, Mayor. My name is Kerry Davis. I live at 7963 East Plata Avenue, Mesa. In May of 2023, the city put forward the following forecast for the upcoming fiscal year. Total sources, $605.2 million. Total uses, $628.2 million. In April of 2024, the city put forward the following forecast for the upcoming fiscal year of 2025-26. Total sources, $628 million. Total uses, $663.7 million. As of March 2025, this year, the city has put forward the following proposed budget for 2025-2026. Total sources, $668 million. Total uses, $721.7 million, or an overspending by $53.7 million. My question for the city is, why are you budgeting to overspend total sources by $53.7 million for the fiscal year 25-26 instead of generating a surplus like you did last year? Our state legislature has put together a document, and it's called the House Republicans Majority Plan. Included in their plan is the following statement. To reduce the size, scope, and cost of Arizona government, we will strive to eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse in government programs, curb excessive spending, and improve budgeting to combat inflation, streamline government by cutting redundant positions and leveraging technology, remove wasteful programs and diversity, equity, and inclusion mandates from government, require a 60% supermajority of any government body to pass a tax increase, require public universities to disclose foreign investments and ban harmful partnerships. I would encourage the mayor and the city council to take heed of what our state legislators have put forward to reduce the abuse of overspending. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Antoinette. Following Antoinette is Doreen Taylor.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is my time starting? Okay.
When you speak,
Good
it
evening,
starts.
Mayor and council members. My name is Antoinette. I'm a mother and resident of Mesa. I'm here to address the city's non-discrimination ordinance. Last time I spoke more personally about why I feel it's in the best interest to repeal this ordinance. This evening, I'm coming with additional information. Firstly, I would like to address that because I am a Christian and I hold to values that are sacred to me, that inform my decisions in life, this does not mean that I lack kindness or compassion. Okay, I do respect others who believe differently than I do, and quite to the contrary, I understand that if you fail to be honest and truthful, that is not being kind, but being destructive. To illustrate exactly what I mean, I will be referencing an event that took place in Deerfield, Illinois. You would think that your kids would be safe at school, not so with a similar ordinance that's in place. Plus, couple that with the teachers and the administrators who were dismissive of the concerns of multiple 13-year-old middle school girls. The incident, as stated in several news sources, forced these girls to change in the company of a boy who is identifying as a girl. The trans child had several options of more private changing areas. However, the teachers and administrators forced these 13-year-old girls, after they had protested, to change together. This is abuse, and it's also sexual assault. By the laws currently held in Illinois, I would also surmise it's unlawful coercion. If an adult coerces or forces a minor into a situation where nudity or exposure occurs, it is a felony. Before we have a high-profile incident in the city of Mesa, I feel it is in the best interest of Mesa to repeal this ordinance, or to at least close the door for future uncapped liability and litigation. At very minimum, please revise this ordinance to go back to the common sense protection of girls from biological males in bathrooms, locker rooms, and other private areas. And I also would like to make a correction to a previous speaker who said that Turning Point USA was funding this cause. That is a blatant lie. I know the person who filed the complaint, and I've also walked with her many times. Okay, so thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, Doreen. Following Doreen will be Liz McDonald. You're on.
Thank you so much for seeing me, Mayor Freeman, and thank you, Councilwomen and Council Rich Adams, and to Scott Summers, who I think is remote right now. I'm kind of echoing what Antoinette just said. I'm really up here to basically ask you a few questions, and hopefully you can answer them maybe after this. I'd be happy to meet outside, but I would really love to know what the qualifiers or parameters of a non-consent agenda item are. And the reason I ask that question is because I think that it is incumbent upon our city council, and Mayor Freeman, this is not directed at you, our prior mayor, who decided in 2021 to revamp the Fair Housing Ordinance and make it a non-discrimination ordinance without the consent of the local constituents for which they represent. It is an inappropriate movement on a city council to vote yes with their mayor on something that is so socially impactful. The repercussions of allowing people into private spaces because they identify as the opposite sex brings an enormous amount of liability on the city. There have been countless instances where males have identified as females and females have identified as males, and they have entered into the opposite sex's space, and it has resulted in violence, it has resulted in rape, it has resulted in females being beaten nearly to death in public schools. I'm happy to bring you resources if you want them. And you just casually agree with this notion without having any of your constituents vote on this. So, as a result of that, I'm here to petition that we definitely repeal the non-discrimination ordinance and we move it back to what it was, which was fair housing. Because let me point out to you that in 1964, the federal government came up with something small called, Title VII Civil Rights Act, in which a business A place of public administration cannot discriminate against someone based on their race, their ethnicity, their sexual orientation, however they want to identify themselves. You can't, as a business, just tell someone, you can't work for me because you're gay. That doesn't work for me. But more so, I would like to challenge you to think philosophically. Why on earth, as a business owner, as a public administrator, as a school principal, whatever you name it as, should I have any qualifiers towards someone based on their sexual orientation? It's not my business to have that conversation with them. So this language is unnecessary. What I would say that this NDO is doing is making a future case for people to file civil complaints against those who have opposing views, which means that it is not diverse, equitable, and inclusive. It is not kind. It is not loving your neighbor. It is actually quite the opposite. You are forcing, through your local laws, people who have a difference of view and opinion to now tolerate the views and opinions of only one subgroup.
Doreen, can you summarize, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. So I'm just asking you to please repeal. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. All right. Liz, and then following Liz will be Michael Soto.
Hello, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Liz McDonald. I live in District 1. I've lived here my whole adult life. My husband and I have raised 5 children here. All went to school and graduated. My husband's law office, he's a managing partner just across the street. We're enmeshed in Mesa. We love it. In 2016, our oldest son came out as gay, and we have entered a beautiful world of learning about other people that are different than ourselves. And we helped behind the scenes and in front of the scenes with the non-discrimination ordinance. And it did get passed in 2021, and there has not been one civil case that has been brought because of it. You might wonder, well, why do we need it? Well, we need it because there are bad actors on occasion. It is a lovely thing for my gay son and for Landon to know that if there was a bad actor, that they would have some recourse. We appreciate Mesa's priorities being a welcoming city, fair to its entire population, indiscriminate in its actions, and allowing for a sense of belonging for everyone in Mesa. And I want to add one last thing, and that is I'm grateful for all that you do. And the non-discrimination ordinance has nothing to do with public schools. There was nothing in that, so that is not a concern, and just wanted to point that out as well. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Liz. Oh, Michael, you're up. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. My name is Michael Soto, and I'm the President and CEO of Equality Arizona. I was born and raised in Mesa, and I promptly left at 18. I'm a transgender man, and I came out as soon as I left Mesa and was in a safer city where I felt I was not going to be discriminated against. Today, and for over 25 years, it's been my job to advocate for LGBTQ people and our civil rights, and I'm proud to do that today. I had a different speech planned, but I want to respond a little bit to some of the concerns that people have brought up about the non-discrimination ordinance in Mesa. For one, you should know that over 300 cities and towns in this country, in the United States of America, have similar non-discrimination ordinances. But I think what makes the Mesa non-discrimination ordinance even better than those 300 cities and towns is that we go out of our way, or went out of our way, you went out of your way, in the city of Mesa to provide extra protections for privacy for all people in bathrooms, locker rooms, and those public-private spaces. You also went out of your way to make sure that we balance the civil rights of all people and religious liberty protections as well as freedom of speech protections. And that's a really special thing. I think that says something really unique and beautiful about this incredible city of Mesa that makes me proud to call this my hometown, because you balance the needs of everyone. I also just wanted to say that to speak a little bit to the issue of transgender people in bathrooms. I am a transgender person. I use public restrooms as all human beings have need to do. In fact, I used the men's room earlier today before this meeting here in this building. The Williams Institute cites through studies and research of decades that transgender people are more than 4 times likely to be assaulted in a public restroom than any other type of person, including non-transgender people. I also want to point out that there has never been even one credible evidence of a documented case where a transgender person has assaulted a non-transgender person in a public restroom or locker facility. It's never happened. It's never been credibly documented. I know that I don't want to be using the women's room with any of the wonderful women on this city council or in this room. I doubt the women want to be using the restroom with me, and that is what would be called for if transgender people were not allowed to use the appropriate bathrooms for who we are. And so I want to say thank you for passing the non-discrimination ordinance. I want to say thank you for saying that Mesa is a place where everyone is valued. I know how much that means to me because it's not just a restroom in City Hall. It's not just a restaurant, right, or a hotel. It's also emergency rooms. And I know what it's like to be left on the side of the road with first responders calling me names after I was hit by a car from riding my bike. That's a really scary thing, and no one deserves that. Everyone deserves to be treated like a human being, including trans people like me, including all LGBTQ people, including everyone, because that's the great promise of this nation, that everyone deserves life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, to put it short, equality and equal treatment under the law. Thank you for doing that. I appreciate your leadership and for doing right by my hometown. It makes me very proud.
Thank you, Michael. As noted, we cannot respond to your comments, citizen present, but we also have an additional 20 people that have expressed their opinion on different various topics, so we're going to put that with our clerk's office. With that, thank you everyone for a nice late evening in Mesa, Arizona, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Okay, Ms. Spilsbury, thank you, Ms. Goforth. All in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, motion carries. We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.